Welcome to the Project Management Prepcast, helping you prepare for the PMP exam. Here's your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner.
Hello and welcome back to the Project Management Prepcast. We're the PMP exam preparation course that boldly goes where no other course has gone before. I'm your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner. In this lesson, you are going to get an overview of the PMP exam and the application. In particular, we are going to talk about who PMI is and what credentials and certifications they offer. We will introduce you to the PMP eligibility requirements, talk a bit about what and how to document for your application. Then we have 5 slides that we call a mixed bag of various exam topics. We titled them Exam Info. And we also need to introduce you to the fact that the PMP exam is not for life, but instead you'll have to maintain your certification every 3 years. But don't worry, you only have to take the exam once. Maintenance works without having to retake your exam. I also need to mention that Module 70 of the Prepcast looks at a lot of other details of the exam. This presentation here is more about how the exam is administered, the application process, and what happens after you successfully pass the exam. Module 70 then looks at what you can expect on the exam in terms of its history, exam structure, and the exact and detailed content of what the questions will be all about. And let me also say that it's important to note that this presentation here is largely based on the Project Management Professional Handbook, which forms the basis for the PMP exam, and you can download it for free from the pmi.org website. Let's begin with an introduction of the Project Management Institute, the PMI, because PMI is the organization that offers the PMP certification. PMI is one of the world's largest not-for-profit membership associations for the project management profession, with more than 650,000 members and credential or certification holders in more than 185 countries. PMI's worldwide advocacy for project management is supported by globally recognized standards, credentials, and certification, an extensive research program, and professional development opportunities. Its members, you and I probably, we come from virtually every major industry, including aerospace, automotive, business management, construction, engineering, financial services, information technology, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, telecommunications, and many more. The PMP certification is valuable for every project manager, regardless of the industry that they work in. But PMI offers more than just the PMP certification. The family of PMI credentials and certifications includes the Certified Associate in Project Management, the CAPM. This is a good entry-level certification if you're new to project management or still figuring out your career path. Then there is the PMI Agile Certified Practitioner Certification. This is designed for practitioners who utilize agile approaches to project management on their projects. The Program Management Professional, the PGMP, is a credential designed for those who manage multiple complex projects to achieve strategic and organizational results. The PMI Risk Management Professional, the RMP, is a specialty credential that demonstrates competency in assessing project risks, mitigating threats, and capitalizing on opportunities. The PMI Scheduling Professional, the PMI SP, is also a specialty credential for practitioners who want to focus on developing and maintaining project schedules. The OPM3 professional certification recognizes your experience with and practical knowledge of organizational project management and project management maturity. And finally, the project management professional, the PMP, is the most important globally recognized and independently validated credential for project managers. It's for all of us who have demonstrated experience and competence in leading project teams. PMI credentials establish your dedication to and proficiency in project management. To attain a credential, you must satisfy the educational and professional experience requirements that PMI has established and demonstrate your ability to apply your project management knowledge to situational and scenario-based questions during the examination. When you earn one or several of these prestigious credentials, you gain distinction and recognition in a growing community of project management practitioners. A PMI credential also increases your visibility, both within your organization as well as on a global level. PMI certifications are renowned and respected throughout the world. Part of that marketability comes from the prestige of these PMI certifications. PMI has provided project management certifications for over 25 years. Let's begin our look at the administrative side of the PMP exam by reviewing the exam application timeline. So, first of all, the application submission window is 90 days long. That means once you start your application online, you have 90 days to fill everything in, and then click the submit button and say, hello PMI, here's my application. Once that is done, PMI will perform an application completeness review. This may take up to 10 business days as long as you submit your application online. Yes, you could even fill it in on paper, but these days, who does that? So log on to pmi.org and fill in your application there. Once you are approved and the review has come back as yes, it is complete, you can then pay. And after you have paid, you can schedule your exam. But what may happen is that you are randomly selected for an audit, which means you now have to provide additional supporting documentation to PMI. And once you send this information to PMI, this audit documentation, PMI takes between 5 to 7 business days to get back to you and say, yes, you have passed your audit. After that, you are going to take the multiple choice exam, and you have to take that within 1 year after your application was approved and payment was accepted by PMI. And within this 1 year, you have 3 tries, so you can pass the PMP exam on the first, second, or third attempt during that 1 year. And once you have successfully passed your exam, well, there is the certification cycle, or rather the recertification cycle. Every 3 years, you're going to have to recertify your PMP exam, and we'll look at that later on when we talk about professional development units. So yes, as I said, the application is indeed available as a PDF document, and the image that you see here is a representation of the first page of that application. But frankly, the only sensible way is to go online, pmi.org, and fill it in there. So here is what is on the application on a high level. There's nothing really that you wouldn't expect. They need your name and your contact info. They ask about your education, your project management experience, your project management training. Then there is some payment information and information if you need any special accommodation for wheelchairs, for instance. Regarding the payment, please do check the PMP handbook for the current pricing, because the cost sometimes changes. And while you have that handbook open, take a look at the eligibility requirements section and make sure that you're actually eligible to take the exam, because the requirements depend strongly on whether you have a high school diploma or a bachelor's degree. If you are like me and you have a high school diploma but not a bachelor's degree, then you need to be able to show at least 5 years or 60 months of non-overlapping project management experience. In addition, you also need 35 contact hours of project management education. If, however, you have a bachelor's degree, then you still need to be able to show 3 years or 35 months of non-overlapping project management experience, and you also need the very same 35 contact hours of project management education. The good news is that the 35 contacts hours that you need in either case, you are already covered because you're watching the Project Management Prepcast. We are a PMI registered education provider, and this course right here that you're watching fulfills this requirement from PMI. But what about the experience there, the 5 years and 60 months, those 2 boxes at the top? What exactly do you have to be able to show in these 5 or 3 years? Let's take a look at how PMI defines this. Here is a quote from the Credential Handbook, where PMI says that project management experience means leading and directing the project as identified with the tasks, knowledge, and skills specific in the project management professional examination content outline. I do, however, think that the word specific here is a typo in the handbook. I think they wanted to say specified. So, specified in the project management professional examination content outline. And of course, as I mentioned at the end of the first slide of this lesson, Module 70 here of the Project Management Prepcast takes you page by page through that project management professional examination content outline. So do take a look at the lessons in Module 70. PMI also states the following. You should have experience in all 5 process groups across all your project management experience submitted on the application. However, on a single project, you do not need to have experience in all 5 process groups. This means that in the 4,500 or 7,500 hours of your project management experience, you have to be able to show that you have worked on project initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, as well as closing. However, it's quite possible that you may have been hired on a project as a consultant in the planning phase, and that's all you did for 800 hours, nothing but planning. That's okay, and that project counts. These 800 hours count towards your experience in planning, but you have to have other projects where you worked on initiation, execution, monitoring and controlling, as well as closing. PMI also talks about months of non-overlapping project experience. Here's what that means. Each month in which you worked on multiple overlapping projects counts as 1 month towards the total requirement. So, if a project manager worked on Project 1 and Project 2 simultaneously from February 1st to April the 30th, then the time spent on both projects here will be counted as 3, not as 6 months towards the total to fulfill the professional and project management experience required, because that is overlapping. You can only count each calendar month once. Project 3, however, here, which is completely non-overlapping in a different time of the year, will count as a single project from September to the end of December, so that's 4 months there. But that overlapping all there between Project 1 and Project 2, you can only count each calendar month once. Here's another way of looking at this. It's how my friend Andy Kaufman from the Institute of Leadership explains this. He says PMI is looking for 2 things regarding work experience on the application, a number of unique months, and a total number of hours of leading and directing. The required quantity depends on whether someone has a bachelor's degree or equivalent, but the two categories remain. So let's assume someone has a bachelor's degree. They need to demonstrate at least 36 unique months of working on projects and a total of at least 4,500 hours. So let's say project A went from January to October for a total of 1,200 hours. Project B went from July to December for a total of 800 hours. How does this get reported on an application? Well, Project A would count as 10 months towards the 36 unique months. The months of July to October cannot be double counted, so Project B does not get credit for those months. However, the total hours, the total 800 hours of the project count. So the totals for those two projects on the application are 12 unique months, because the project manager has worked from January until the end of December, and a total of 2,000 hours that he or she has worked on these two projects. They get to count the overlapping hours of Project B, but not the calendar months. It's also important to note that PMI assumes that each work week has a maximum of 40 working hours. So even if you were working on 3 projects simultaneously and you put in overtime for 60 hours a week, you can only count 40 hours per week towards your project management experience. And when it comes to filling in your application, here's an important exam tip for you. Use the vocabulary found in the PMBOK guide. So when you describe the projects that you have worked on in your application, you must use the language as you find it in the PMBOK guide, and do not use the language that is based on the project management methodology in your company. Doing this using PMBOK guide vocabulary will show PMI that you understand projects from a PMI perspective and that you can describe them in that way. You show that you are able to use the appropriate vocabulary for the projects that you document. It also ensures that the person who is reviewing your application can easily recognize and understand the type of experience that you have had. It just makes things easier for everyone. Here are 2 more tips for you in regards to how to approach your experience documentation. I strongly recommend that you contact your previous employer and show them your estimates of project hours. That way they know that you are applying for the exam and they know that you are using them as a reference in the application. This is important because in case you get audited, they have already seen your estimates and there won't be any undesirable miscommunication from them. In fact, just a few days ago, before recording this, I received an email from a PMP trainer in Switzerland, and one of her students ran into exactly this problem. She got audited, and when she asked her former boss to sign her application, the audit documents, he said, "Well, I don't remember all the details of these projects. I cannot sign this." And I cannot really tell you right now what happened here because it's only been a couple of days since I heard of this case. But what have we learned is this: prepare for a possible audit by communicating your application information proactively to everyone. On the application, you will also be asked to identify and provide current information for your primary contact for each project. If you have been working in a particular company, in an organization, and you have done projects for them internally, then go ahead and list either your direct supervisor or your project sponsor. If you worked, however, for a consulting firm and you worked on a client assignment, well, you will have maybe 20 projects with 20 different clients. Do not write down the contact information of your final client. List the name of your employer and not your customer. After all, the central person who is best qualified to confirm that you have worked on all of these projects, that's your employer. It also makes it much easier for yourself. If you put down the names of 10 different customer contacts and then you get audited, well, you would have to send the audit documents to 10 different people out there. But if you put down your employer, your supervisor, that one central person, then you only have to contact one person. So let's assume you filled in your application, you have sent it off. Here's generally how you would schedule your exam. After your exam is accepted by PMI, you will receive an acceptance letter, well, actually an acceptance email from PMI. And once you have this acceptance, you can go ahead and you can schedule the exam. The computer-based exam itself is managed through a company called Prometric. They have offices worldwide, and there's probably a testing center in your area. You can go to prometric.com/PMI at this point. You can find the closest testing center and you can obtain and schedule an exam date. You may be wondering, well, what is the actual exam like? Well, let's take a look at that next. First of all, the PMP exam has 200 questions in it that you are going to need to answer. And part of these 200 questions, there are 25 pre-test questions. And these pre-test questions, they don't affect the score. They're randomly placed throughout the exam. This is PMI's way of putting 25 questions in front of you that they're trying out. These are new questions that they have developed, maybe based on new insights in project management, and they're trying them out on you to see how well these are received, how people are answering them. Basically, you're becoming a guinea pig for PMI. They're trying out these questions on you. Well, 200 minus these 25, this means that 175 questions remain that make up your final score on the exam. But of course, you don't know which 175 questions these are because the 25 pre-test questions, they're randomly placed throughout. You have to answer all 200, assuming that every single one counts. And what topics do these questions cover? Well, the PMBOK guide is divided into 5 domains: initiating a project, planning a project, executing a project, monitoring and controlling a project, and closing a project. And here on the screen you see what percentages and numbers of questions come from which of these 5 domains. So it's quite obvious that the closing domain with 16 questions in total versus the executing domain where you have 60 questions in total, well, closing is a lot less important. So you should invest more time into studying the executing portions of a project and a little less in regards to closing for the PMP exam. In total, you are going to have 4 hours of time in which you will have to answer all of these 200 questions. And here's a quick exam tip for you. I really mean all of the questions. Don't leave a single question unanswered. There's no penalty for answering a question incorrectly, but not answering a question means it is automatically counted as wrong. So not answering counts against you. One inquiry that I often get is the one about the exam passing score. What is the passing score? People want to know. Well, in the past, PMI followed a simple percentage approach. So you knew that in order to pass, you needed to have X% of the questions answered correctly. Well, no more. Instead, PMI now follows what they call a sound psychometric analysis. Psychometrics, that's the study concerned with the theory and technique of psychological measurement, which includes the measurement of knowledge, abilities, attitudes, personality traits, and so on. And of course also for the PMP exam. This means that each question may have a different weight. It also means that each exam may be scored on its individual merits. And hear me say the words may, because we really don't know for sure how PMI actually does this, how they do their scoring. But on a very high level, this is what psychometrical analysis is all about. You get those 200 random questions from a pool of several thousand. The easier the questions that are on your particular exam, the more of them you're going to have to answer correctly. And conversely, if you have an exam with 200 extremely hard questions, well, you need to have fewer answered correctly. So if you hear from anyone who says that the passing score for the PMP exam is X%, please do tell them that they do not really understand how it works. When you are done with your exam and you leave the exam room, you will be handed your score report. And on that score report, you will see the 5 domains. And for each of these 5 domains, you will find a proficiency level. If it says proficient, it indicates that your performance is above the average level of knowledge in this domain. If it says moderately proficient, well, that means that your performance is at the average level of knowledge in this domain. And of course, if it says below proficient, well, it means your performance is below the average level of knowledge in this particular domain. For all the details about your score report, please watch our separate lesson, your PMP exam score report, where we go much more into detail. Here are a few action items for you to consider on your road to becoming a PMP. They will make things much easier for you. First of all, you want to read the PMP handbook and you want to confirm that you are eligible. By reading the PMP handbook, you will also get acquainted with the administrative side of the PMP exam. Then you want to become a member of PMI and your local PMI chapter, because being a member of PMI will give you a discount on your application. The discount is actually greater than your membership fee, and often local PMI chapters, they have classes that you may want to participate in locally, and you get a discount there as well. You want to sign up for the exam as soon as you meet all the requirements so that you have a date set in the future. It's much easier to study when you know, ooh, I only have 5 months left, I better get going here. You also want to read the exam specifications so that you really understand what is all the content that's going to be on the exam. Watch module 70 of the PM Prepcast. That also takes you through these exam specifications, and of course watch all the lessons from the PM Prepcast in order to prepare yourself for the exam. I also do recommend that next to watching the Prepcast and of course reading the PMBOK guide, which is not mentioned here in these action items, do also buy yourself a PMP exam preparation book. You can find them in any bookstore online. They are things like Passing on Your First Try or PMP Exam Success. These books, they take the content from the project management body of knowledge, the PMBOK guide, and turn it into more understandable language. The PM Prepcast does the same for you, but it's always great if you can watch our lessons and at the same time also read the material from another author about the same topic. You get 2 angles of looking at things that will make things stick better in your mind. We're moving on beyond passing the exam because once you pass, you must show ongoing professional commitment to the field of project management. A big part of this is the fact that the PMP certification is not for life. Once you are a certified holder, you need to adhere to PMI's Continuing Certifications Requirements Program. That's the CCR program. To follow the program, you participate in earning professional development units via professional development activities. That's how you maintain your credential. Every PMI credential or certification requires a specific amount of these professional development units, these PDUs, for every 3-year recertification cycle. And for us PMPs, we need to earn 60 of these PDUs. And that's not just once. You have to earn these 60 PDUs and maintain your credential every 3 years. Oh, and of course, there's also a small certification renewal fee that you have to pay. And how do you earn these PDUs? Well, PMI has created 6 categories, category A through F. Let's go through them briefly here. Category A PDUs are given to you by PMI registered education provider courses. We are a PMI registered education provider and we do offer PDUs. Take a look at the various offers that we have once you pass your PMP exam. Category B, same thing really as Category A, continuing education, but not coming to you from registered education providers. So any course about project management that is not coming to you from an REP falls under Category B. Category C, this is self-directed learning. For example, I offer the free project management podcast at pm-podcast.com and you can earn 30, that's yes, 30 PDUs just by listening to my free podcast. Category D, creating new knowledge. Do you have a blog about project management? Do you have a project management website? Do you write articles about project management? This all falls under Category D. Category E is volunteer service. Are you by any chance a volunteer or an elected board member of your local PMI chapter? Well, every hour that you volunteer counts as PDUs. And finally, the easiest way to earn your PDUs, just keep doing what you're doing. Work as a project manager on your projects. If you are employed as a project manager, you can earn up to 5 PDUs every year just for doing your job. So those were the categories. Let's take a look at a few ideas for earning PDUs here. You can simply attend the dinner meeting of your local PMI chapter. Usually those are good for 1 PDU every month. Self-study, you can read a book on project management or listen to my free project management podcast. You can teach a project management class or you can attend a project management class. Both count. The only difference is the teacher also gets the preparation hours to claim as PDUs, and when you just sit in the class, all you get is the 8 hours, whereas the teacher gets 16 because he prepared or she prepared 8 additional hours yesterday to get ready for today's class. You can take an online project management webinar and of course also teach an online project management webinar. PMI doesn't necessarily require you to go into a physical classroom. You can do this from home. And already mentioned this, volunteering for your local PMI chapter. Really a great way not only to earn your PDUs, but get to know project managers in your area, to connect, to network, and also pretty much to find your next job through volunteering and earning PDUs. There are a lot of project managers out there who hold multiple PMI certifications. Let's take a quick look at their situation here. For example, Joe and Sue here, they are both PMP and PGMP certified, but But Sue has also the scheduling professional, and Joe also has the PMI ACP, the Agile Certified Professional certification from PMI. So this means, purely from a numerical perspective, well, Joe and Sue both need to earn 60 PDUs for their PMP and also 30 PDUs for the PMI ACP and the PMI Scheduling Professional. But the good news for them is they don't actually need to add these up. They don't need to earn 90 PDUs because the specialized PDUs for their PMI ACP or PMI SP renewal also counts for the PMP. In other words, if you are a dual certification holder like Joe or Sue here, go ahead and earn your 30 Agile PDUs or your 30 scheduling professional, risk management professional, whatever it may be, PDUs first, because these will automatically count towards your PMP and PGMP recertification. So once you have these 30 specialized PDUs, you then only need an additional 30 traditional PDUs to complete the cycle for your PMP or PGMP certificate as well. I know at this point you're really more focused on passing your PMP exam than worrying about what you need to do afterwards, but the most important information for you to remember from this segment of the presentation is start earning these PDUs the day after your exam, and you have to earn 60 every 3 years. And we can help you to do this because we really make it easy. We do offer several products just like the Prepcast here that will allow you to earn PDUs. We do have the PDU podcast at pducast.com that delivers one webinar to you every month with which you can earn PDUs. We have, as I've already mentioned, the project management podcast at pm-podcast.com, my free podcast. You can earn 30 PDUs over there, and you can also earn 37 PDUs by watching the Agile Prepcast. The Agile Prepcast is the sister podcast here. It helps you prepare for the PMI ACP exam, and once you are PMP certified, you can watch this Prepcast and earn those PDUs towards your PMP recertification, even if you have no intention whatsoever to become PMI ACP certified. You can simply take the PDUs from that course as well. There are 4 resources that you will definitely need on your way to becoming PMP certified. First of all, the PMI website, obviously at pmi.org. You want to read the PMP Certification Handbook, which you can find at this very odd URL here. Don't worry. Look into your student handbook. That's where we have a direct link to it. If you need to contact PMI, simply write to customer care at pmi.org and ask your question. They're quite good. They respond usually within about 2 to 3 business days, depending on how many tickets they are receiving on the day that you're sending your question in. And to find a Prometric testing center in your area, please go to prometric.com/PMI to see where you will have to go to take your exam. And that's it for right now, but let me remind you that Module 70 of our Prepcast here also looks at the other details of the exam. The lesson you have just watched was more about how the exam is administered, how the application process works, and what happens after you successfully pass the exam. Module 70 looks at what you can expect on the exam in terms of its history, the structure, and the detailed content that is used to create the questions, because that module looks in detail at the officially published PMP examination content outline. And with that, we have come to the end of this lesson. So, Justine, what do we say?
Be seeing you.
Until next time.